Good morning. Just wanted to, first of all, just let you all know that I miss you and I wasn't feeling very well, and now I am in quarantine to totally different issues. So, anyway, I am available if you need me, if you've got questions. I'm going to go ahead and go over the lesson with you, and you're going to be able to listen to this on your headphones and watch it on your Chromebook. And then after class, or toward the end of class, if you have questions, you'll be able to get on a Google Meet with me and ask those questions after you've had a chance to try some problems. So first of all, go ahead and put your name on the paper like normal. We're going to put our I can statement. I can factor expressions. And today's date, that would be 12/3. And this is first hour. All right. So we have talked about, what we've talked about so far is using the distributive property to factor expressions, or I'm sorry, to distribute expressions. And what we've done is we've started over here and we've taken our 2 and multiplied it by x to get 2x, taken our 4, multiplied it by the 2 to get 8, and we've done that lots. Okay, what we're working on now is we're going to be doing the reverse. We're going to be taking our simplest form, and we're going to pull out, or we're going to factor out the common number that goes in both of those terms. And we're going to create this one from this one. So the first thing that we do is we find the greatest common factor of each term. In this one, 2 is the greatest common factor. That would be the biggest number that will go into both of these evenly. So 2 will go into 2, and 2 will go into 8. So I'm going to pull out my 2, and that's what they did right here. So I'm going to divide it by 2 and divide this one by 2. So 2x divided by 2 leaves me x. 8 divided by 2 leaves me 4. And so whenever this is factored, it's going to look like 2 and then parenthesis, x plus 4, parenthesis. This is the factored form of this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for those the greatest common factor, and we're going to divide that out. And then we check our work by distributing. And yes, we do need to check our work. I'm going to be looking at your assignments and making sure that you have shown your work. And in order to get credit, you're going to need to do that. So once you get the hang of it, and I know you don't need to anymore, then that's fine. You won't have to. But for now, you need to do that. So the first one we're going to start with is this one, 7x plus 7. Well, that's a pretty easy one. The number that goes into 7x and also goes into 7 is 7. So I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And so 7x divided by 7 becomes x. And then 7 divided by 7 becomes 1. And then the number that I pulled out was 7. So my new number should be, or my factored expression should be 7 times x plus 1. And to double check my work, I'm going to multiply 7 times x, which will give me 7x, multiply 7 times 1, which will give me plus 7. If this matches this, then I did it correctly. So this is my correct answer right there. So we're going to look at number 2. Number 2, we have 4k plus 20. Let's see if I can get that to be a little more clear. Okay, 4k plus 20. So the number that will go into 4 and will also go into 20 is 4. So I'm going to divide both of those by 4. And that means 4 is going to go on the outside of my parenthesis. So 4k divided by 4 is going to leave me with k. 20 divided by 4 is going to leave me with positive 5. So 4 times k plus 5 is my answer, but I want to see if it works. So I'm going to say 4 times k is 4k plus 4 times 5 is 20. And that is what I started out with. So my answer checks. Okay. The next one, 5m minus 15. The number that I can pull out, the greatest common factor, is 5. So I'm going to say 5 and 5. So I'm going to start with my 5 on the outside of my parenthesis. 5m divided by 5 leaves me with m. Negative 15 divided by 5 leaves me with a negative 3. So if I did that correctly, 5 times m is 5m. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. That is what I got. So that answer checks. This one, 6r minus 48s. Both of these, the factor that they share is 6. So I'm going to divide by 6. Put my 6 on the outside of my parenthesis. 6r divided by 6 is r. Negative 48s divided by 6 is negative 8s. So if I did it correctly, 6 times r becomes 6r. 6 times negative 8s becomes negative 48s. And that is what I started out with, so that one checks. Okay, the next one, 12w plus 24. I'm going to divide out 12 because it will go into both of those. 12w divided by 12. So I'm going to put my 12 on the outside. That becomes just w. 24 divided by 12 becomes positive 2. So that's my answer. 12 times w is 12w. 12 times 2 is 24. So that checks. All right. Now we have 2p divided by 9. Do they share a common factor? Well, 2 is an even number, 9 is an odd number. They do not share a factor. So in this case, it says factor each expression. If the expression cannot be factored, write prime. So we're going to write the word prime because there is nothing to factor here. Okay? So next, we're going to move down to number 7. 4n divided by 10. Well, in this case, I can't factor out the 4, but I can factor out a 2 because they're both even numbers. So I'm going to divide them both by 2. So I'm going to put my 2 on the outside of my parentheses. 4n divided by 2 becomes 2n. Negative 10 divided by 2 becomes negative 5. So that's what I think my answer is. 2 times 2n is 4n. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And that is what I started out with. So my answer checks. All right. Number 8. 10v plus 45. Well, they don't share a 10. The factor that I see that they share is going to be a 5. So I'm going to divide 5 out of both of those. So 5. So 10v divided by 5 is 2v. 45 divided by 5 is positive 9. So that's what I think my answer should be. 5 times 2v is 10v. 5 times positive 9 is 45. That's what I started with. So my answer checks. All right. Next, we're going to move down. 6k plus 21. And we're going to see what will go into 6k, but will also go into 21. Well, it won't. Let's see. 2 won't, but 3 will. 3 goes into 6. 3 goes into 21. So I'm going to divide them both by 3. So I'm going to put 3 on the outside of my parentheses. 6k divided by 3 will leave me with 2k. Positive 21 divided by 3 will leave me with positive 7. So I'm going to put my square around it. 3 times 2k becomes 6k. 3 times positive 7 becomes 21. And that checks because that's exactly what I have right here. All right, the next one. 16a minus 12b. So I'm looking for the biggest number that will go into both of them. Now, I could pick a 2. 2 goes into both. But the biggest number that goes into both of them would be a 4. So I need the greatest common factor, not just a common factor. So I'm going to divide them both by 4. Put the 4 on my outside of my parentheses. 16a divided by 4 is going to be 4a. Negative 12b divided by 4 would be negative 3b. So now I'm going to check it. 4 times 4a becomes 16a. 4 times negative 3b becomes negative 12b. And that is what I had, so my answer checks. 8r plus 15. I'm going to look at both of those and see if I can come up with anything that will go into both of them. But I'm having trouble finding anything because 8 and 15 don't share any factors. So since they don't share any factors, my instructions tell me that I just write the word prime. Okay? 24y minus 40. So I'm going to be looking for the biggest factor that both of those will share. So I could look at 4, I could look at 2, I could look at 4, but I also could look at 8. 24 goes into, 8 goes into 24, 8 goes into 40. So I'm going to choose 8, 20, and so I'm going to put that on the outside of my parentheses. 24y divided by 8 is 3y. Minus 40, or negative 40, divided by 8 is negative 5. So I think that's my answer. So I'm going to say 8 times 3y becomes 24y. 8 times negative 5 becomes negative 40. And that is what I have there. So my answer checks. But I want to point out real quick that if I had decided to do it by 4 instead of by 8, maybe I didn't realize that 8 was my greatest common factor, and I went with a 4. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to say 24y divided by 4 minus 40 divided by 4. So that's going to say 24y divided by 4 is 6y, and 40 divided by 4 is 10. But if you'll look, what that does is I still have 2 shared factors. And I haven't factored it completely until I don't have anything else that I can factor out. So I need to go ahead and do that extra step and take out that 2 that I missed the first time whenever I only did it by 4 instead of doing it by 8. So when I do that, that's going to leave me with, so this, let's see, this would have been a 4, or actually it would have been like this, 4. Okay, but I need to do it actually by 2 more. So that's going to change this to 8, and that's going to change this to a 3, and that's going to change this to a 5. So I need to make sure that I have done it by the biggest possible number, the greatest common factor, and not just a common factor. So that's really important. All right, on the back side of this paper, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this says a question on a quiz asks students to factor the expression 32m minus 24. Get my paper stacked up here in the right place so that you can see it. Okay, so it says Ryan and Jane's answers are given below. Explain who is correct and why. So they said 32m minus 24. Well, I can either factor this and then look at the answers, or I can check their work, and see which one was closest. So I could say 4 times 8 is going to be 32m. 4 times negative 6 will be negative 24. That's Ryan's answer. Or Jane's will be 8 times 4m is 32m. 8 times negative 3 is also negative 24. So they both have the same answer, but they both used different numbers they pulled out different numbers. So what do you think is the reason for that? Well, if you look at it, 8 and 4 are both factors of 32. So they pulled out one of them, and that left them with the other. And it worked out okay because they still were not sharing factors. Except if we look at this one, did he pull out enough? That's the problem right there. We both got the same answers, but he didn't pull out enough because these two still are even numbers. These two are not. So Jane's would be correct. And the reason is, so Jane is correct because she used the greatest common factor. Ryan only used a common factor. Sorry, that's kind of blurry there. I'm going to have to work on clearing that up a little bit so you can see it better. So that is what you need to be able to do. You need to be able to look and explain why one of them is correct, and you need to be able to identify when somebody uses the greatest common factor versus when they use just a common factor. Okay, so now we're going to talk about expressions. So there are, first we have to simplify, and then we have to factor them. So to simplify, we have to combine like terms. So we have a 4x and we have a negative x. Those are like terms, right? So a positive 4x, a negative 1x is going to leave me with a 3x. A negative 2 and a positive 23 is going to leave me with a positive 21. So now I need to factor it. So I'm going to say if I factor this, 3 and 21 share the greatest common factor is 3. So I'm going to divide them both by 3. And I'm going to say 3x divided by 3 becomes x. 21 divided by 3 becomes 7. And now if I double check that, I'm going to get 3 times x, which is 3x, plus 3 times 7, which is 21. That is correct. So my answer checks. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add our common we're going to combine our like terms first. So first we have our 11m and our negative 1m. And that is going to, this one right here and this one right here is going to give me a positive 10m, a negative 13, and a positive 5 will give me a negative 8. So I have 10m minus 8. So what I'm going to pull out, my greatest common factor is a 2. So I'm going to put my 2, parentheses, 10m divided by 2 is 5m. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. These don't share a factor, so it looks like I got the greatest common factor. Now, to check my work, 2 times 5m is 10m. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. That is what I started out with, so my answer checks. Okay, the next one, I'm going to combine my like terms. 23p and negative 3p become 20p. Negative 27, positive 2 becomes negative 25. I can pull out a factor of 5 out of both of those. So my 5 goes here. 20p divided by 5 is 4p. Negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. That's what I think my answer is. 5 times 4p becomes 20p. 5 times negative 5 becomes 25. That is correct. My answer checks. Okay. Next we have 7x and 11x, which becomes 18x. We have negative 2y and negative 8y, which becomes negative 10y. So I have an 18 and a 10. They both share a 2. So I'm going to divide 2 out of both of them. Pull it out here. 18x divided by 2 becomes 9x. negative 10y divided by 2 becomes negative 5y. So I'm going to check them. 2 times 9x becomes 18x. 2 times negative 5y becomes negative 10y. That's what I started with, so my answer checks. Just a few more, and then you're going to get started on your own. So here we have a couple of things that we're going to do first. So first, we're actually going to distribute this, because we distribute, then we combine and simplify, and then we factor. Okay? Because our instructions up here told us to simplify and then factor. So we're going to distribute. 5 times 3a becomes 15a. 5 times negative 2 becomes negative 10. And then we write down the rest, minus 13a minus 2. So now I have a 15a and a negative 13a, which leaves me a 2a. And I have a negative 10 and a negative 2, which leaves me a negative 12. So out of these, 2 is my common factor. So I divide 2 out of both. 2a divided by 2 becomes a. And negative 12 divided by 2 becomes negative 6. So that's what I think my answer is. 2 times a is 2a. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. And that is what I had, so my answer checks. Okay, number 19. Let's see, I'm going to start here. Actually, we don't have to distribute anything on this one because there's nothing right in front of this. Well, actually there is. There's actually, since that subtraction sign means that there's a negative 1 out there. So we're going to rewrite these two first because we're not going to do anything with those. We're going to multiply this negative 1 times 4k, which is going to give me negative 4k. Negative 1 times negative 17, which will give me positive 17. So you have to be careful. If there's that subtraction sign out there in front of parentheses, it means that you have to distribute a negative 1. So now we are going to go ahead and combine them. So I have my 24k and my negative 4k, which leaves me 20k. I have my positive 1 and my positive 17, which leaves me positive 18. These both share a factor of 2. So I'm going to pull out my 2. 20k divided by 2 is 10k. 18 divided by 2 is 9. These two do not share a factor, so I'm good. And I think that's my answer. 2 times 10k becomes 20k. 2 times 9 becomes 18. My answer checks, so I am good. Okay, down here, I've got a 9m minus 6n. Then I have a negative 3 times m, which is negative 3m. Negative 3 times 6n, which is negative 18n. All right, so here I have a positive 9m and a negative 3m. That gives me 6m. Then I have a negative 6n and a negative 18n. My signs are the same, so I have to add them and keep the sign. So that's going to give me minus 24n. All right, these both share a 6 as the greatest common factor. So I'm going to pull out my 6. 6m divided by 6 leaves me with m. Negative 24n divided by 6 leaves me with negative 4n. So I think that's my answer. 6 times m, 6m. 6 times negative 4n is negative 24n. That's what I had. My answer checks. And the last one, move my mouse out of the way. We're going to distribute this first. So 16r plus 2s. And if you look, there's nothing there, but I've got to pretend that it's a negative 1. So negative 1 times 6r is negative 6r. Negative 1 times 8s is negative 8s, plus my 4r that's hanging out there at the end. So now I'm going to add, I've got my positive 16R, my negative 6R. So positive 16, negative 6 leaves me positive 10. And then I have a positive 4R. So I have a positive 14R. So 16 minus 6 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Okay, then I have a positive 2S and a negative 8S. So that's going to leave me a negative 6S. So now I'm going to divide a 2 out of both because that is the greatest common factor. 14R divided by 2 is 7R. Negative 6S divided by 2 is negative 3S. I think that's my answer. 2 times 7 is 14R. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6S. That's what I had here. So my answer checks. So that is how you do those. So what I want you to do is you've got two different sets of information here. One of them is all of the notes that you're going to be taking over the next couple of weeks. Do not lose those forms. The next thing is that you have some papers that are stapled together that are the homework papers. This is homework number 4 for factoring expressions. You are going to do it's only one-sided. You're going to do all of these problems. It is due tomorrow at the beginning of class. And whenever you turn them in, you need to make sure that you have shown your work, shown all your steps. This is exactly the same kind of problem down here at the bottom that we did on the notes. Use your notes, use your integer rules to do all of this work, okay? And these are all going to be scanned to me so that I can look at them, make comments on them, and return them to you so that you have some information. So I'd like you to go ahead and get started. I'd like you to do this set first. Start with 1 through 10, or 1, 4, 7, and 10, and then 13, 15, and 17 while you're here in class, so that if you have any questions at the last part of class, you can ask me. And then you can finish the rest of them up at home. So I hope that you understood the lesson. And if you have any questions, you can listen to the whole thing again if you need to. You can call me, you can email, anything that you need. I'm willing to help you as long as you're helping yourself. So I hope that you have a great day, and I will talk with you a little later. Thank you.